that aren't on Facebook. I am trying to meet with my friend Tanoa Downing right now. Hopefully he'll be able to get on here. I sent him a link. Hopefully he gets it. Waiting, waiting, waiting. All we do is wait. Waiting. I'm always waiting. Hi, Andre. I love you. Nothing's changed. I am going to wait until I see your bright, sunshiny face. I just love you so much. I can't believe they're doing this to us. It's unbelievable. But I'm starting to pull my head out of my ass. It sucks when I can't talk to you. I mean, it really sucks. I should be used to it. We've been doing this for a while now. But I got so used to being able to talk to you. It just sucks. Oh, is this link not working? Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, hold on. All right, well, still waiting. I just wanted to check my DMs. Yeah, I don't know why this isn't coming on quickly. So how have you guys been? Shit's been rough in Facebook land, like really rough. They have deleted most of my close friends and family's accounts, blocked them from me. Oh my gosh. It has been a long time. Thank you for showing up. I missed you so much. I've missed you so much. Maybe I should just start coming on YouTube for a while. At least I have friends here. I don't have any friends on Facebook right now. Well, I have a couple, but most of them have been blocked from me. Andre's been blocked from me. Thank you for showing up. I missed you. I love you. I'm waiting for Tanoa. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. It's Tanoa. It's Tanoa. Yay! Hi, Tanoa. I'm so happy to see you.
Hey,
I'm so thankful to see you. I was just like, this isn't going to work again. It's not going to work. Everything's been blocked for me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is my friend Tanoa Downing. He is a civil rights activist, and he is working on everybody's freedom right now. Take the stage, Tanoa. I can't hear you. You're muted still. What the hell?
All right. How about now?
Okay, there you are.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry, I'm late here. Yeah.
Oh, you're good. I just sit on here and talk to myself most of the time anyway, so I'm used to it.
Okay. Well, we'll get there. We're on finally. Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this up. How are things going for you, Tanoa?
Oh, they're rough.
Yeah, we're having a rough spell, aren't we?
I mean, yeah, with the last vehicle being stolen on Wednesday, now I'm stuck. So I'm trying to figure out what the next step's going to be. And, I mean, 5 vehicles stolen since May by the police, just without cause. There's no arrests. They just leave me on the side of the road and take all my stuff.
I thought it was only 2 times it was the cops. It was all 5 times?
No, all 5 times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it started in King County, Washington on last week in May, I believe it was when that one was taken. That was a rental car. I was driving to Seattle to fly out to DC, and they didn't really want to allow me to make that flight. So that was the first one, and yeah, this last one on Wednesday. Then it took that vehicle and all the stuff that was in it. So now I fortunately have I have a couple places that I can stay here in town, and so and I have a little bit of money, but it's not enough to buy a vehicle yet. So we do have some people that have offered to donate some down in Florida and one up in Pennsylvania, but I have warrants in both those states now. 7 states have issued warrants for rhetoric against public officials or threatening public officials. So there's some certain states that I need to try to avoid entering into until we get a little bit more momentum built up. So it's a little rough at the moment.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm kind of in the same boat, but I'm sitting in that state right now.
Yeah. 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 Are we live now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that right now, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what God's got going on. It's interesting because when you look at the things that are going on across the country, right, and the events that are happening, you know, even the arguments that are being raised at the Supreme Court were all paving the way for this argument. I mean, everyone. When you look at the Chevron doctrine and the fact that they're looking at overruling, I was going to have to argue Chevron anyway, or elements of Chevron, but look at the border as well. I mean, the whole issue down in Texas right now is does the federal government have the ability, or an agency of federal government, in this case, Border Patrol, do they have the ability to create laws that are contrary to Constitution or policy that's contrary to Constitution, and thus fail to fulfill the obligations codified within the Constitution of the United States? I mean, the answer is no. Does the state of Texas have the right to self-defense to be able to defend itself against those rights that are supposed to be protected, that are enumerated within the Constitution of the United States? Absolutely, they do. And so when you look at that from a much larger perspective, a state level perspective, and then you bring it down to a collective level to the argument that I have. I mean, the argument that I have is does the state have the right to be able to create its own laws that are contrary to Constitution and thus, proceed contrary to it? And do I not have the right to self-defense to be able to stand up and say, no, you can't breach those obligations and do it however you want to have it done. It must be consistent with the laws, particularly the Constitution of the United States. So when you look at the issue on the border right now, I mean, it is absolutely directly corollary to the issue that we're trying to raise to court, and it's amazing that it's that way. I mean, but everything that's happening right now is I mean, everything tells us that we're on the track, we're going to win, and it's just finding that way, just getting that breakthrough. And it's extremely frustrating for me because I don't think that people really understand what it is that I'm doing or who I am or why I've done it. And honestly, that doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is that we accomplish this, and but I don't get paid. I don't have money. I haven't been paid in 8 years. And I don't want to be paid, because if I focus on money, then that means that's going to be what I'm going to be looking to, right? I'm going to be motivated by money. I don't want to be motivated by money. I want to motivate.
It ruins everything.
I want to be motivated by service. I want to be able to provide service to the people. I want to be able to provide that service to them, and I want to make sure that I can give the best quality service that I can, with the capabilities I have and the resources that I have. And then if people value and appreciate that service, then they'll ensure that I have the things I need to be able to accomplish this. And although it's a different approach, it allows me to be able to focus on service as opposed to money. I don't care about the money. I don't care about it. I mean, what I care about is getting this finished and accomplishing what God set out for me to accomplish, and that's what matters. And what He set out to accomplish is the exact same thing millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people across the United States and across the world are seeking. And that's justice, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have two sides to the story. We have an entire side of the story that's never been told. You know, I mean, when 98% of all convictions come by way of plea bargain here in America, that's 98% of criminal defendants that don't even get to tell their side of the story. You know, they had their right to do so, and that right was denied. It was denied by a system that chose to take a side against them and hinder or obstruct that free speech in order to control the narrative so they can win a case. It's as simple as that. But you know, we got to understand that the truth will always lie somewhere between two stories. And so when you allow for one side to be told, but then through either obstruction or through intentional ignorance, you prevent the other side from telling theirs. You can't say the truth has been ascertained. You certainly can't say that justice has been administered. We
True.
have to talk about these issues, all of us. We have to, and you know that's the thing with these criminal affidavits that I'm trying to obtain. And I imagine we'll need to go back and kind of break down some of these things that I'm saying. But when you look at the criminal affidavits, this is an opportunity for people to say that something's happened to them. The crime has been committed against them and their family, and rights have been deprived by something that was created to do nothing but protect those rights. And and so we've got to tell that story. You know, we've got to all be fearless and do it, because you know our country has the amazing ability to learn from its mistakes. But the only way that a nation can learn from its mistakes is by learning from the mistakes of the people. You know, it's by telling our stories that we will be able to prevent this from ever happening again. And so you know, we're in a very scary place right now as a nation, very, very scary. Because when you look at the Civil War of the 1800s, there were five major precursors that occurred prior to that war, and we've got four of them that are here right now, exact same things. And let me give you an example. Okay, let me give you an example. So the United States Supreme Court in 1857 came out in a case called Dred Scott versus Sanford. And what was happening in this case was that a black man, a slave, was in slave country, and his master brought him into free territory. And he said, "Well, man, I'm in free territory now. I can petition the government, the Supreme Court, for my freedom, and I should be set free." And based upon the laws, absolutely should. He's in free country now. He's no longer in slave country, and as a result, he's bound to those laws of which are governing him. And so, he petitioned the United States Supreme Court and said, "Hey, can can I sue for my freedom in federal court?" Well, the Supreme Court didn't want to make this decision. They never do. They never want to make these decisions. Civil rights decisions are the last thing that any of these guys want to do, because it has such a significant impact on their operation. And so they do everything in their power to prevent any of these civil rights cases from coming forward. And so we actually have Chief Justice Roberts. He wrote the book on standing. I mean, he's the best that there's ever been. He knows how to keep civil rights cases from coming forward. And I read his book, and he's the best. And but we're going to overcome it. But um, so what they do is they employ standing. And so to have standing in federal court, you basically have to have two things. One, you have to be directly impacted by the law in question. If you're not impacted by the law, you have no standing, you have no ground. And two, you have to be a person, right? Be able to have the right to be able to come into the Supreme Court, demand a hearing. So those two things are the requirement. Now there could be some other, you know, procedural requirements, but those are the two main requirements. So, you know, the Supreme Court, they said, "Man, we don't want to make this decision. So how do we prevent us from having to do so?" Well, we can't say that he wasn't impacted by the slave laws, because he is. He's a slave, so he obviously is impacted by those laws. And so they had to say, "Well, let's make him not a person." And so what they said in this Dred Scott ruling, and it's appalling, but it was written by Chief Justice Taney. And what he said is, he first said that person, citizen are synonymous with one another. They mean the same thing. And then they went on to say that blacks are not and were not intended to be included under the word citizen in the Constitution. Blacks are so far inferior that they have no rights which the white man is bound to respect. Slaves are private property protected by the Constitution. Now, those are egregious words. Those are disgusting words. And I don't think that there's any United States citizen alive today who can help but feel shame and anger at those horrible words spoken by the highest member of the highest court in this land. But they were spoken. And those are still standing Supreme Court precedent today. So what they said is, they said that blacks aren't people. And as a result, they don't have standing in federal court, in the Supreme Court. We don't have to hear the case. It's dismissed. Go back to the state, argue with the state for your freedom. So that's what they said. You're governed by the state. Go secure your freedom with the state. You don't have the right to bring a case here into federal court. Well, that's egregious. And the reason why it still is standing Supreme Court precedent today is April 10, 2019, we filed the original civil action at the United States District Court of Eastern Washington. It was against the grand jury issue, obviously. And the court immediately came back and they said, that you have to go and exhaust state remedies. You have to go and get all the courts of state to come up with a response, reply to it, and then you can come into federal court. Now, that's not true. It's not true for a number of reasons. It's not true even written within the habeas corpus statute 2254, because it says that if the state has a law that's in place that impairs the individual's ability to be able to find relief or injunctive relief on it, then you would obviously have a waiver of the exhaustion of state requirements, which that's written in law. But they kept on saying, no, you can't waive those. Even though the law says that you can't do it. So go back to the state and argue. Well, all they were doing was they were just trying to, push us back to a different court, say, no, you gotta go back to the state, you gotta argue with them. Until you get done with them, you have no standing in federal court. And I came back and I said, no, that's not true. Because when you go into the jurisdictional guidelines, Title 28, when you go to Title 28, subsection 1343, which is the civil rights jurisdiction statute, what it says is that the district court shall have original jurisdiction of any civil action authorized by law to be commenced by any person. Okay, so that particular statute is used to redress the deprivation of any rights secured by the Constitution, providing for equal rights of all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States. So if you have been deprived of right under the authority of state law, this is the law. This is the provision that would determine who has jurisdiction. And again, what the jurisdiction was that the district court shall have original jurisdiction of any civil action authorized by law to be commenced by any person. So it has to be a civil action, and it has to be commenced by a person. I'm obviously a person, right? And I'm submitting a civil action in the form of writ of habeas corpus. And I submitted that back to the court. I said, no, you guys have jurisdiction in this. You guys have to see this. By pushing us back to the state, you're actually abusing your discretion and you're breaching the law. And we got a response back in the court. It was Magistrate Fricky from Washington. And what she said was, ordinarily, the district court would have jurisdiction in this case, but that statute can't be used by state prisoners. Now, let me tell you what that means, right? Because think about it.
They don't consider them citizens.
They don't consider them persons, because remember, it is any civil action authorized by law to be commenced by any person, right? So if state prisoners are not able to use that, then what are state prisoners? They're not persons.
What are they?
They are not persons, which is the same thing.
It's like saying they're not human beings.
They're not persons. That's what they're saying. But there's a whole bunch of issues with that. Now, first off, is that the writ of habeas corpus is a judicial relief for prisoners, right? The whole purpose is for prisoners. So to say that it's not to be used for prisoners is absolutely ludicrous. I can't even imagine how she would explain that particular ruling away when she says that state prisoners can't use the very statute that is designated for state prisoners. But then the second thing is that under the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1968, prisoners in no way have lost any civil rights unless it's expressly stated within the statute. Nowhere in that statute does it say state prisoners can't use it. That's just something they put into place in order to kick the people back and say, oh no, we don't have jurisdiction. We're not going to rule on this one, because they were going to have to rule in our favor. Just like they did in Dred Scott. They were going to have to rule in favor of Dred Scott. They didn't want to do it because they knew that they were going to have to let the slaves go free. It was going to open up the floodgates. They don't want it. They didn't want it. But unfortunately for them, we have the exact same statement that was made in Dred Scott, was made here. And now, just as I've been saying all along, we know what a prisoner is. We know
they're slaves.
When they talk about a slave, we know what they're talking about. They are talking about prisoners. The Fugitive Slave Act, right? The 13th Amendment, that if you are incriminated, that you can become a slave, right? So we know what it is that they're talking about. But to say that slaves are not people and therefore not protected by the laws, well, we got a big problem, because that was the precursor to the start of the Civil War. And it's already happened. It's happened here now. And the last time that a president was not placed onto a ballot was Abraham Lincoln. So we've got some pretty serious events that are manifesting, that are showing us a direction that we're heading that I don't want to see this country headed. And And we need to remember, I've said this numerous times, and I want everybody to understand is that I'm a patriot. I'm as much a patriot as this country's ever produced, right? But a patriot is one that loves and defends this country, right?
The
I love
people.
this country. I love it. I love this country. I know that we make all kinds of mistakes. I know, but we're better than this. But we're only going to be better than this if we learn from our mistakes, if we accept the mistakes and the errors, and we figure out a way to move forward together, right? Not through continued denial, not through continued ignorance, but through acceptance of the fact that we are here today as a nation, as a people, and the problems that we're experiencing are the cumulative problems of all. I mean, if you want to place shackles upon your brothers and sisters, then again, you're not going to have the ability to not have shackles placed on you. But if a patriot is one that loves and defends his country, then patriotism is not a call to arms, right? It's not go out and get guns. Let's go fight this war and let's go start shooting each other up. That's not what we should be looking toward. Because if you love something, then destruction should never be an optional outcome for that that's loved. If I love his
But you
country, I
need to
don't
be able
want
to
to.
protect yourself.
Yeah, we do need to be able to protect ourselves, but we protect ourselves through the use of our words because power is not the gun. Power is not the title. Power is not the political office. Power is the ability to influence others in their decisions for future. Right. So if I can speak words and I can use my words in a non-destructive manner to help people understand that we're in this together, right? And look at what we're doing in destroying our country and harming our people. If we can use those words effectively, then we can change their behavior in the future. And that's what we got to do. I mean, we've got to get these words and we've got to use them in a much more effective manner because we've got to care for not just the people that are in prison that we want to see get home, but we got to take care of those people that are making the decisions in political office that are making them wrong. Because we need them to understand that that if you want to be a leader, then a leader leads.
What happened?
Leader will lead with honor, and it's not honorable to break the law. It's not honorable to commit crimes. And so, you know, I've explained this many times, but it's so important that we understand that the issue of criminality, right? It will never, ever, ever be solved the way that we're attempting to do it today. It can't be done because when we go from the bottom up, where we go out and arrest the people for the crimes they've committed, it's just going to keep building. Because if our country is being led by criminals, people are acting outside of the law and the very laws that create their office and give them their authority, then they're criminals because criminals are simply one that transgresses the law. So if our leaders are leading us unlawfully because they're not following the law, the very law that they're bound fidelity with and to, then that's going to lead our country into crime. It will create an environment of criminality. And as a result, we will thus produce a society of criminals. So we want to wonder why we've got an 800% increase in prison population. It's not because the people are bad. It's because the people are being led by people that are leading us in an unlawful direction.
They're criminals and they're not listening.
They aren't
They're
all this.
listening
Right.
to what our needs are.
Right.
And like you get to the point where it's like, what else do you do? If your words aren't meaning anything to them, it literally hasn't seemed to make any difference. Now what?
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm frustrated just like anybody else, but I have faith, and that faith is leading me in a specific direction. I know that it's God's will. I mean, certainly this would be what God would want to see done. We want to see it done in a non-destructive manner.
Yeah.
But um, I don't know how it's going to work out. But what I do know, what I do know is that what we're dealing with is cognitive dissonance. We're dealing with a bunch of liars, right?
Yeah.
Liars and narcissists. That's what we're dealing with. And when you look at the psychology of narcissists, right? One of the things is that they put on this image of perfection and they talk about how perfect they are, and they project this image of perfection on everyone else. And so they say, "Oh, you guys are all criminals. All you guys are all criminals." Well, that's because they're dealing with the criminality inside of them. That's a matter of projection.
Right.
And so when you understand that, when they say that you're a criminal, that's them admitting their own criminality. So when we look at the psychological element of it, we look at the understanding of a liar and the traits of a liar. We understand the traits of a narcissist, and we can start breaking it down. We can start seeing, okay, this is how we deal with them, because we're dealing with the biggest narcissist that this world has ever known as justice, and it's led by a whole bunch of people that think that they're perfect and want to go out and talk about how perfect they are, and at least we're not those criminals, right? we're going to sit in judgment of them, and yet we're going to be committing crimes every single day and every single. No, they're criminals, because a criminal is one that transgresses the law. If you break the law, you're a criminal, and criminals don't have any place in the seat of honor, right? So, if our country is being led by criminals that are acting outside of the law, then that means that the action that they're taking is unlawful. This is without law, which means that what it's producing is unlawful. And until they return to the established rule of law, they will not produce a lawful outcome. They won't do it, because everything that you do as a result of unlawfulness must be unlawful. And so, they don't want to admit this. They don't want to recognize this, but I don't care. It doesn't matter, because it's a very simple concept. You either obey the law and produce a lawful outcome, or you don't obey the law and you produce an unlawful outcome. And so these judges, these prosecutors, they got to understand that what they're doing is not lawful. It's very clearly outside of the law. And as a result, everything that's happening is wrong. And so when you deal with cognitive dissonance, now cognitive dissonance is when there's a separation between a person's actions and their morals. Okay. So, I believe that judges and prosecutors, I believe that they're probably good people that think that they're doing good and that intend to have good intentions and so on. They probably believe that they're the good guys. But because of the cognitive dissonance, they don't recognize that there's a separation between their actions and their morals. They believe that they're a good person, but is their actions aligning with that good person? And the answer is no, because anyone that breaks the law is a criminal and it's doing wrong. So, if they're committing treason and perjury, and they're excluding exculpatory evidence, and they're preventing witnesses from being able to testify freely, fully, and truthfully to any matter pending before the court, these are substantive issues that are affecting and undermining the true integrity of the system. And they're doing it because they've simply taken a side. It's a predetermined outcome, and as a result, they do everything in their power to prevent the other party, the opposing party, from being able to present their case and prevail. And so, the use of threats, intimidation, duress, coercion, these are acts that are contrary to the substantive nature of our justice system, that have such a significant impact on the actual procedures, that if they weren't addressed, then they would result in a complete breakdown of our entire system. You cannot threaten and intimidate witnesses. You can't do it. So, when you look at, again, cognitive dissonance, you have a separation between actions and your morals. The only way that you can deal with cognitive dissonance is you have to call them out with the truth. You have to tell them the truth. You have to tell them often, right? And so
keep repeating yourself. I've noticed
keep repeating
that.
Yeah, you guys are criminals over and over. You guys are criminals, right? Because when people walk in the courtroom and you got to stand up and all rise for the honor. He's coming on in. Well, why am I going to rise up to this guy? This guy's a criminal. I'm not going to call a criminal honorable. They're not honorable. They can
I
make a
couldn't listen
decision
to my
to do
judge.
well.
It was totally unhonorable what he did.
Right. They can make a decision to be honorable, but if they don't make the decision to be honorable, they're nothing.
They're not your honor.
They're garbage. No, they're not honorable. And they're certainly not leaders of this country. Our country is not going to be led by a bunch of criminals, a bunch of people committing treason. So, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but what we have to do is we have to allow the truth to do the work. And it took me a long time to understand how truth actually does work. It kind of goes like this: that when you present the truth to someone, right? The truth is the only thing that has the power to offend you. Nothing else has that power. So when something is said to you, that energy that comes to you, when it offends you, immediately you want to lash out at it, because you're like, oh, I feel bad, right? I want to lash out at, and I lash out at the speaker, and then we get into an argument and debate, right? But it's the truth that he spoke to me that's bothering me, and it's causing something inside of me to say, hey, this is wrong. But the thing is that when I speak the truth to one of these judges, I'm not going to sit there and have an argument with them, because I'm only allowing their toxicity to come, and then I'm allowing them a means of releasing that energy in a manner that would be inconsistent with them having to address it. No, I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to tell them the truth, and then I'm going to walk away. I don't care what they say about me. They got all kinds of bad things to say. I don't care. They say anything they want, because all that toxic energy that they're producing, it's going to have to go somewhere, and it's not coming to me. I'm not going to allow it in with me. I'm going to go about my day with my peace, and I'm going to do the things I need to do. It's going to have to return to them. And when it does, then they have to eventually address that truth inside of them. Because, as we say, that you have to have an indictment by a grand jury. And then they say, oh, well, we don't have to have that. But then, the next day they're sitting on the bench, and here comes 5 or 6 people for arraignment without indictment by grand jury. Eventually, they're going to start thinking in their head, man, you know what? I'm not following the Constitution. I'm doing it wrong. That truth is going to do the work for us, right? And it's going to start telling them that what you're doing is wrong. They're going to see their behavior is wrong, and that's the only way that we can do it. We have to get these people, these judges, these prosecutors, we have to get them to accept their criminality, accept who they are, right? Accept what they're doing, and then make a decision on what they ultimately want to become. Do you want to remain a criminal? And if so, align your morals to your actions. And if you don't, if you want to be a good person, you want to be an honorable person, then guess what? You're going to have to change your actions to realign with your morals and thus return to the established rule of law. I believe that in the end, that's where we're going with this. Because if we did it any other way, it would be destructive. It would be destructive. If we said that, okay, we're going to start arresting you guys, we're going to hang you, whatever it is, we did that, that would be destructive, right? We need these people, our leaders, to understand that what they're doing is criminal, right? And so what I'm doing is I'm drawing that line in the sand. You know, a lot of people have this confused. They think that I'm fighting for prisoners, right? They think I'm fighting to get prisoners out of prison. I'm fighting to get my brothers free. That's an absolute fact. But I'm not fighting. But I'm not fighting for them. I'm fighting against the crimes that are being committed
Well,
against
it's
them.
for everyone. Because
Exactly.
anyone could be there right now. Anyone. That's
Anybody.
what I keep saying.
Right.
Like, you guys don't want to support
Yeah.
these things, but this could be you. When these rights are taken away, you are next. When
Yeah.
when they're done with us, guess who they're targeting next?
Yeah. Yeah. And John Kennedy, he said it. He said that there is a conspiracy underway in this nation to enslave every single man, woman, child, and before the end of his term, his first term, that he will expose it. And then he was dead 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
We know what this is. We know what the conspiracy is. We've seen it, and we see it right now. And you know, I mean, there are some disgusting things that's happening. I mean, the discussions that I see about the people that are dying down in Alabama prisons. I've got friends that are there. I want to get these brothers back home because when we got 23-year-old men that are dying, and then their family gets their body back, and there's no heart in it.
They're missing their organs.
We need to know, where in the hell is that heart, and how much did a billionaire pay for that heart?
Mm-hmm.
We need to know, because if that's what's happening, then we're going to tear this whole fucking thing down, and it's
It is
never
what's
going to
happening.
fucking.
I see it psychically. I've been seeing it long before
Yeah.
you even this was
Yeah.
mentioned about Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, God has that tendency to show me things, and so that I'm not as shocked. And yeah, you have your visions, but He shows me things through writings and others, and so I'm prepared for it, so that it's not as much of a shock. But I know that's what we're going to find here, is that there are 239 men that died in Alabama prison last year. 1 year. That's one state, one year.
And that's
239.
such a protected environment. Usually nobody dies in prison because there's nothing to die from in there.
Yeah, I mean, these people weren't sent to prison to die.
Right.
So, but we've got a horrible environment that's dangerous. Now, how many of those families of the 239 prisoners that died last year now, but how many of them had the money to bring their family member home? Didn't have it cremated or buried out back in some,
How many of you have family that still speak with them, or even.
Right. We don't know about these guys, but we need to figure this out. We need to figure this out real quick.
Yeah.
Because if we're doing that as a nation, then God help us, because that's not that's sickening. But that's digressing. But the thing is that you know I used to be on the other side, and I was on the other side of government, and I believed in it. I fought for it. I built a lot of the programs that we have in national security, and I believed that government was good. All right. Oh, trust the police. And, we've got a just system that you get a fair process, and, you're innocent until proven guilty. And only people who are in prison deserve to be there, because innocence doesn't suffer here in America. All right. That's the American principles, right? Most America believes in those things, right? But the truth is that they're not real. They're not real. And they're not real because the application is different than the theory. We've got procedures and processes that are to be adhered to, that have been designed to prevent innocence from suffering. We need to follow this procedures and processes. And if we don't, then innocence will in fact suffer. And that's where we're at. If you were to open up the criminal procedure manual, it was written by a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge, so a federal judge, and you were to open up some preface, you go down to the fourth paragraph. It says, most prosecutors across the United States agree that as much as 15% of people in prison are innocent. But that is acceptable deviance because our system isn't perfect. I mean, that's so contrary to what Americans believe. They say 15% of people in prison are innocent, but I'm
But
sorry,
oh well.
luck of the draw, right? We don't care. It's, better luck next time. No, here in America, innocence is not to suffer. So when you say that we don't have a perfect system, before you say that something isn't perfect, I first suggest that you use it the way that it was designed to be used. Don't blame the system for your incompetence or your laziness, because that's all that is. You don't want to follow the rules, and so you're going to use the system and blame it for your own failure. We have 15% of people, I think that number is way higher, but if we have 15% of people in prison right now that are innocent, we got 415,000 people that are suffering in prison innocent, but they don't care.
Not
And I
even
think
just
that
the
number,
innocent, but like marijuana charges are still in prison and it's legal
absolutely,
most places.
absolutely. If this weren't about money, then those men would be back home to their families,
Yeah.
right? Why would they remain in prison? Why? Other than to make money, right? Other than to enslave and force them into involuntary servitude so you can make t-shirts and sweatshirts for 30 cents an hour in an institution we call sweatshop in China, but a prison here in America.
Right.
Right? Why do we have those men there? If the public is able to smoke marijuana, then why are they there for smoking marijuana? It doesn't work. It's these we need to make these decisions. They're in the best interest of people, not in the best interest of the business. Government's not a business, but we run it as though it is. And when we do, then obviously the decision we make, the laws that we create, they're going to be focused on generating revenue, and that comes at the expense of citizenry. We need to be making laws that are focused on what is in the best interest of the people. And therefore, we've got to get away from this business mentality. Government is not a business. It doesn't produce a product. And government is there for one reason only, and that is to protect the rights not given up by a social compact. Life,
Well, they
liberty,
shouldn't charge so much for everything. Then they shouldn't be able to make money. They should be nonprofit or something. You know what I mean? Like, why are
absolutely.
they able to make money off of prisoners? That shouldn't even be legal.
Absolutely. Right. We've gotten data on a lot of these senators and congressmen, and you would be sickened by the amount of money that these people have invested in this industry and different facets of this industry. We're not just talking, just the prisons themselves, CCNA, Geo Group, and Core Civic. The institutions and for-profit organizations that actually build prisons and operate them, and their stock is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We're not talking about just those. We're talking about the telephone companies. We're talking about the commissary distribution systems. We're talking about the transport systems. These are all major for-profit companies that are heavily invested by these very politicians that are making decisions that's impacting their monetary. You're absolutely right. I mean, there should not be any financial incentive in doing it. But it brings up an interesting point, and that's that when you look at the Clayton-Sherman Act, which is the antitrust law, and now we're getting into racketeering and things of that sort. But when you look at the antitrust suits, right, there's three requirements to have an antitrust suit. One is you have to be able to limit competition, right, which they do. You have to have a desire to proliferate the eliminating of competition, which they do. And three, you have to have a greater than 20% markup across the board on average items from the competitive market. Well, in some cases, we've got up to 1,200% increase in prices between what's on the commissary store and what is out in retail store. 1,200%
It's
across the board.
ridiculous.
Across the board, we got more than 500% increase across the board. This is a Clayton-Sherman issue because when they set up for-profit commissary systems to set a retail store, and then they create a consumer group, and they call that consumer group prisoners, right? And then they take those prisoners, that consumer group, they place them into their store so they can buy their product at their price.
And it's all it is food because they're not feeding them enough.
Yeah.
They have to buy
and
it.
again, why are they not feeding them enough? Well, you got to look at the history because there's an old saying that how incredibly alike are all tyrants, but how gloriously different are each of the saints. Tyrants will always have the same tactics. The delivery might be slightly different, but the tactics are the same. And what's one of the first things that they did with the Jews? Well, took away their law, but they took away all their books as soon as they started learning, right? Which they do in all these prisons. You don't get books. And two, they don't feed them enough. Why? Because if you are hungry, and your mind spends the entire day wondering where you're going to get food, you don't have time to be able to think about all these other things that's going to benefit you and improve you. And that's especially true in jail, right? This is a tactic that they have. This is a standard tactic that the system uses every single day. It's called a deprivation tactic, and it is something that was employed by terrorists for thousands of years. So when you go into jail, right, you're not going to be fed enough, right? They're going to just give you the bare minimum. You can't save that food. You can't hold it over, and so as a result, you're going to spend that entire day wondering where I'm going to get food. Right? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. And that's going to control you. It's going to take over your thoughts for the entire day. And as a result, you're going to be more malleable to solicitation for a guilty plea. So the whole intent is to get you to be able to get you to do whatever it is that they want. I mean, the case that we have with the Supreme Court, what we're doing is we're bringing forward what's known as the formula of intimidation. And all intimidation follows this formula, all of it. And it goes like this. It says, if you don't do X, I will do to Y, whereby X is my envisioned outcome, Y is resultant powers and cause. So when they want you to plead guilty, that's what they want. They want you to enter into a contract of guilt with the state, right? For whatever crimes they say that you did and whatever punishment they demand, right? And they want you to do that. They want you to enter into that contract. Well, their envisioned outcome, X, is that they want you to plead guilty. Result their powers and causes, they'll send you to prison for 20 years if that's the threat. And so when they make that threat, what they're doing is they're formulating a contract and they're doing it through illegal means. And so, these individuals that are having these things happen to them, whether it's the absence of food, whether it's the prosecutor that's coming in and saying, "Oh, we'll send you to prison for 20 years unless you plead guilty to this," or CPS coming in and saying, "If you don't sign over your child, your right to your children, that we're going to send you to prison." I mean, these are statements that are made every single day across this country. And I've talked to thousands and thousands of people. These are repetitive, normal statements, and they're in the exact same format every single time. And so, when they say to you, if you don't do what we want, we will do this to you, that is an abuse of their discretionary authority. They don't have the right to be able to threaten you, because remember, this is a substantive issue. It is witnesses, right? Because a fair proceeding requires all parties to come together to present the evidence, to speak freely, fully, and truthfully to the matter pending before the court, and then for the court to determine the outcome of the dispute through the jury, right? And so when you prevent one side of the story from being told, of course, now you have that breakdown. Now you have the elimination of truth, and you just simply relied upon one party. But you got to understand, the issue here is Article 3, and in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. If the state is named a party, any state, then it must give up its right to be able to judge that case, because a judge cannot be judge of his own cause. So just as James Madison said in the Federalist Number 10, he said, no man is allowed to be judged in his own cause, because his interest would no doubt bias his judgment and not improbably corrupt his integrity. With equal, nay, with greater reason, a body of men are unfit to be both judge and party at the same time. So when the state makes up a body of men, right, there's police officers, there's judges, there's prosecutors, there's CPS, they're all part of that body of men. And when that body of men chooses to become a party in the cause, it must recuse itself, because it cannot be presumed to be neutral and unbiased if it's going to judge its own case, because that judge works for the plaintiff. All right. So when that body of men comes together and takes a side against you, just like under the Tort Claims Act, because when we look at immunity and waiving immunity, that would fall into the Tort Claims Act. It says in it that if government chooses to take action in any case, it gives up its immunity, and it can be sued or be sued. So when the state chooses to take a side against you, to become the plaintiff, then that body of men are now one party, because anytime government gets involved, it becomes a single entity. So when the state of Oklahoma, for instance, when they become the plaintiff against you, then that state of Oklahoma, being made up of lots of different parts, if any one of those parts, be it law enforcement breaks the law, or the judge breaks the law, or prosecutor, if any part of that body breaks the law, then the whole body is held accountable. and a good example is this: is that my body's made up of a whole bunch of different parts, right? I have hands and eyes, ears, legs, right? So I have a whole bunch of different parts that make up my body. When I become the defendant, because my hand stole property, my head can't say, "Oh, it was my hand that did it." You can punish him, don't punish me. Well, the entire body has to pay for any action of its agent, right? The entire body. So when the state becomes a party, the state of Oklahoma, and it's made up of a whole bunch of different parts. If one part of that body breaks the law, then the another part of that body can't say, "Oh, it was him that did it." We can't be held accountable. This is where we establish the conspiracy, because when we have a government that is engaged in ongoing conspiracy to undermine the laws of the United States and to prevent them from being able to be executed, which is sedition, then we have a pretty serious matter. And so that's what's happening. When the state of Washington, when they step up and the Attorney General of Washington, Bob Ferguson, when he comes out and responds to our written allegation and says, yep, the Fifth Amendment doesn't apply to the state of Washington. Well, I'm sorry, but now we have the chief legal officer of a state, the body men, that's saying, you know what? We don't follow the Constitution. We're not going to follow the Constitution. And we're going to put it into place a statute that is completely contrary to what the Constitution demands. And that was done by lawmakers in Olympia. Well, those lawmakers are now tied into a conspiracy to commit sedition. Each one of them. They put into place a law that's contrary to the Constitution of the United States. They attempted to alter, amend, or destroy the Constitution of the United States by legislative fiat, and it can't be done that way. And so, we established this conspiracy by identifying one criminal element within that body men, make up the state. We find one single criminal element within it, and the whole entire criminal enterprise is thus implicated. Right? All of them. And so we got to break through. We got to get this first one, because once we get this first one, then the entire group come together. And then when you look at the conspiracy laws, and this is very, very important because a lot of people want me to be moving faster. They say they're irritated by my inaction or whatever that might be. I don't care, right? I'm being driven by God. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But the thing is that again, we don't want to do this in a destructive manner. And so I want to explain the sender element. But when we come forward, when you deal with the conspiracy statute, if you don't want to be a part of a conspiracy, then you have to do one of two things. You either one have to notify authorities of the crime, right? Or two, you have to notify your co-conspirators of your intent to no longer participate in the conspiracy. That's the only way that you can mitigate your liability in the conspiracy. And so when we look at what's going on, and let's take the indictment issue in particular. So when you look at the indictment issue, what's happening is that the prosecuting attorney determines the charging instrument based upon an investigation, because the executive branch is responsible for enforcing the law. So when a crime is alleged to have been committed, that prosecutor, then being the highest law enforcement officer within the county, he determines, okay, we're going to charge this person for this crime. We're going to enforce the law. And they come forward with the charging instrument. Now, that charging instrument has to be one of three things. It must be either one, a presentment to a grand jury, two, an indictment from a grand jury, or three, information. But Title 18, subsection 555 says that information can only be used for non-infamous crimes, misdemeanors. Cannot be used for anything else. The Clause 1, Amendment 5 says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. So when the United States Constitution says that you have to have an indictment by a grand jury for any capital or infamous crime, it is what it is. That's what you have to have, a presentment or indictment by a grand jury. Now, when you bring in information and you use information as your charging instrument to charge for an infamous crime, which is any crime punishable by more than 1 year imprisonment in a penitentiary, when you use information to do it, you have to draw in an improper charging instrument. And according to the law, that can't be used to pursue that particular criminal element. And so when that happens, is that it's the prosecutor that's making the error. They're the ones that are responsible for this. The enforcement branch is absolutely responsible for almost all of this. But what we're doing right now is just as Sun Tzu said in his book, The Art of War. The first thing you got to do is you got to break up the alliances. That's the first way to be successful. And so we got to break up the alliances. Right now, we have the judicial branch, the executive branch, are working together in single unity to prosecute and just tear us all apart, right? But the judicial branch isn't actually responsible for this. Now, yes, they're making a major error and they're implicated in it because they're rubber stamping these charging instruments. They weren't responsible for the charging instrument, but they were responsible for ensuring that the proper charging instrument was there before holding the person over for a trial. So as we point at these judges and we say, these judges, they have an oath. That oath is that they'll do what the Constitution says, right? And so what I'm doing now with the senators and congressmen, because you can go out to my page, my Facebook page, and you can go and you can download a letter. It's a letter to a senator and it's a letter to congressman. And we need to get those out to our representatives, right? It's an action item request. It's requesting them to investigate these acts of corruption, the deprivation of rights, constitutional rights that are existing. And we call it all out. Those need to go to your two senators and they need to go to your congressman. And the reason why is because right now the legislative branch they're not part of this, right? They're not responsible for it. They were going about their business, not even aware that any of this was going on. But when we bring it to their attention and we say, hey, we're giving you as my representative, you have to do what I say through an action item request. I'm telling you that I want you to open up an investigation and investigate these acts of corruption. These are per se. There's not even denying it, right? And so when we do that, when we notify them, we give them the duty to have a hearing and to pursue this action item request. They have a choice then, right? Now they're aware. They're aware of what's going on. Now, whether or not they've investigated is irrelevant. They're aware of it because 1986 says that any person who, having knowledge of any of the wrongs conspired to be done, mentioned in the preceding section, and who have the power to prevent or aid in the prevention of the commission of the same, neglects or refuses to do so, may be joined as defendants in the action. So when we send this letter out to these senators and congressmen, and we tell them what's going on, we receive a response back from them saying, we've received this. They've been informed. Now, whether they choose to do something about it, willfully or negligently, is irrelevant. If they have the power to do something about it and they choose to do nothing about it, that is the crime of complacency. And complacency and complicity is the same thing within public officials. So when we inform them of this issue, these deprivation rights, these crimes that are being committed, then they need to decide: are we going to investigate this? Because if they do, then what are they? They're notifying their conspirators of their desire to no longer participate in the criminal conspiracy, because they're implicated in it today, whether they knew it or not. They are pursuing and advancing unlawful and illegal laws through the abuse of the judiciary and the executive branch. So the first step is we got to get these senators, congressmen to say, "Oh, this isn't us. We don't want to be implicated in this. So we're going to go ahead and conduct these hearings." Right? They'll go ahead and conduct the hearings, whatever. But then the next step is going to be the judges they're going to have pressure on them. And they're going to say, wait, it's not us. It's not our branch. You know, we were responsible for doing certain things, but we didn't make this. We didn't cause this problem. And they're going to point to the executive branch. And now we're going to have one branch of government that's going to be responsible for the things that have been occurring. And now by this oversight, this new oversight created by the legislative branch and the judicial branch, they will correct the actions of the third branch of government. This is the only option we got. The only option. And we got to put pressure on these branches of government. We do that through exercising our rights to be able to petition our legislators for action, understanding that they didn't cause this, but they will be implicated in it should they choose to do nothing about it. So, you know, I don't think that they want to. They want to do that, and so we got to get them motivated. We got to get them to wake up and recognize the fact that, you know, that we're notifying you of this, and if you choose to do nothing about it, doesn't mean that you're not going to be not guilty. No, it means that you are going to be added as defendant in the action when this comes forward. And so, you know, the only option we got right now is to continue to push this truth out, continue to create as much pressure as we possibly can within these branches of government to get the oversight that we need to correct the unlawful acts of the
for example, I want to write my congressman, I want to write my senator. What do I write them? What do I tell them exactly about my personal case or about the general disruption of the world or what?
Well, so again, on my Facebook page, I have some affidavits that are already prepared. It's on a Google Drive. You can go out to the Google Drive. I'll go into the box. I'll provide it in the box here, the link to it.
Okay.
But after we're done, but there's two letters. One is to a congressman. One is to a senator. Right? You would print them up. I think 3 pages each. Print them up. Read it. If you agree with the content, then sign it, and then fax it into your senators and congressmen.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Yeah, and it's already prepared. Now the thing is that I focused on the easiest and quickest one, which is the indictment by grand jury. Right? We're going to deal with the CPS issue along the way, but the indictment is clear, concise, it's simple. Is there an indictment by a grand jury that's in place? If the answer is no, then get them out of prison, right?
Yeah.
Because the Fifth Amendment is a prohibitory act, right, or a prohibitory provision. So all of the Fifth Amendment are all prohibitory, meaning that there is a prohibitory element that's associated with the deprivation of right. So, for instance, no person shall be denied property without just compensation, right? So the prohibitory act would be, or the deprivation would be the removal of property. The prohibitory act would be the absence of compensation for doing so, right? And then when you get to like the indictment by grand jury issue, it is no person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. The deprivation is the imprisonment of the individual. The prohibitory act is the absence of an indictment by a grand jury. Therefore, when there is an absence of the prohibitory act, it gives rise to injunctive relief. We have injunctive relief. We've had it all along, right? The thing is that if there's no indictment by a grand jury, consistent with Clause 1, Amendment 5, then there's no lawful justification for that person to be in prison. And thus it's unlawful imprisonment. And you deal with unlawful imprisonment with the use of writ habeas corpus. You don't appeal it because there's nothing to appeal. It is a judicial relief that is done by a writ of habeas corpus. You challenge the detention and you challenge whether or not they have lawful authority to be able to detain them. The answer is no, they don't. In 99% of all cases in prisons across the country right now today, those people are there illegally, unlawfully, because the prohibitory act was not identified.
Well, they were probably pushed into a plea bargain out of fear.
The plea bargain isn't valid though.
Right,
it's not valid,
exactly. Like
because
you can't what do you call it? Threaten somebody
right.
and call what they said, like
Yeah.
people admitting to crimes they didn't even do based on fear.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of history behind this, and again, I used to work for a lot of government agencies. I used to work for intelligence agencies. I'm very well aware of what I'm about to mention here, but we see this going on. It was starting in Guantanamo Bay, Camp X-Ray, and so at the time, at the global war on terror, when it first started, what was happening was that we would identify these enemy combatants, right, potential terrorists, and it would come from some allegation from some Algerian or whoever, right? We'd get an allegation of this person being a terrorist. We would, without verifying or validating, we would go out and we would arrest this individual, and then we would bring him to Camp X-Ray, and we would then put him through these horrible deprivation tactics that affected him mentally, physically, sexually, and it impacted them significantly, right? And we did it until they agreed that they were guilty of whatever it was that we thought that they were guilty of. And then we would take them in front of this judge, advocate general, JAG officer, who would then act as judge and jury in a sham process that would determine their guilt in it. So, we would literally force them through these abusive tactics to make them plead guilty, because whether they believe it or not is irrelevant, simply because we believe that they were. And so we're going to force them into believing themselves that they were. Well, one thing that we found is that in hindsight, we learned that most of the people at Guantanamo Bay, they were never terrorists at all, but they were when they left, right?
Nice.
They were when they left, because we were creating the very object that we were going out and fighting against in order to justify the war on terror. We were making the monsters through our actions because of our determined belief that this person is a criminal, this person is a terrorist, and we don't know that. We didn't put them through a fair process. We didn't give them opportunity to be able to confront the accusations that are against them. We instead just said, that person's a criminal. We're going to treat him as though he's a criminal. We're going to force him into saying that he's a criminal. It doesn't matter how bad or brutal it is. We're going to do that because we think he's a criminal. That's not justice, guys. That's not consistent with our founding principles, but that's what happened.
Did they do waterboarding?
Yes.
Because I was in court and I told them that my probation officer was torturing me, and he just laughed and he goes, "Oh, I assure you it's not torture. Have you ever experienced waterboarding?" I'm like, "Are you serious? You guys do that?" Apparently they do.
Yeah. Waterboarding doesn't occur, but I will tell you that of those tactics that are used at Guantanamo Bay, they're all used in every single jail and prison across the country here in America. Every single one, every single day, the same exact tactics. And so what's happening is that we are creating the very object that we're going out fighting against in order to justify this war on crime. In the same way that we did it and the war on terror. And so when we take a human being and we put him into a horrible situation where he's behind block walls, and we constantly have a fear and violence that's all around him, we have a deprivation of clothing, of food, of freedom, all these things that are necessary to be able to develop our cognitive abilities, our social ability, all these things. When we take all that away and we put them into these conditions, we're creating the very object that's leaping there and is going out and hurting other people. And we got to understand that. I mean, what we're doing is wrong. And we're creating these monsters. These are being created by the system. Everybody knows that you don't go to prison to become a better citizen. You go to prison to become a better criminal, right?
Mhm.
It's well known. And so if that's true, then it's the prisons and the system that's creating the criminals. It's not the people.
They
They're
must be
creating.
doing it on purpose. They want to create chaos, it seems to me.
They do. They do. They do. And we can see that, for a long history. Now, I don't know if they. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that they want to do it, but they're doing it, right? And they're
Well, I
doing it
mean, like
regardless.
like for instance, I was in jail and it was like 55 degrees in our cell, and you had a t-shirt and a pair of pants, and that was it, and one thin blanket. Like you were literally freezing to death the whole flipping time. It was torture.
And that's one of the deprivation tactics: fluctuation in temperature, and in cold. I mean, again, these are tactics that have been used by terrorists for thousands of years. Thousands of years. They've been used over and over and over. We can see all through history these exact same tactics have been used. Take a prisoner, put him on a cold floor without a blanket, and make him sit and shiver. I mean, you can see the dungeons and shit from the 1200s that they deployed the same tactics. Don't give them food, throw them a bone and let them chew on that for a while. Right?
It's
Go
just
give them water.
barbaric. I cannot believe a modern civilization is doing this to people. It's insane.
I know. I know. I mean, it is. It's disgusting, and it's not us. This is not America. This is
Mm-mm.
not the way that we were founded. This is not the way we should be treating our people, because we are taking the poor of our society and we're pushing them down, and that's bringing the whole country down. Our whole country is collapsing because of our desire to push the poor further down. What we got to do, guys, what we have to do is we've got to take the poor and we got to raise them up. Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when we raise the poor up, we will all come up together. Right? The poor are not in their position because of incapability of learning or lack of resources. They're in that position because the government's placed them there, because that's where they generate the revenue. Government makes money off of the poor. People get sent to prison because they're poor. You have to sell yourself into slavery in order to settle the debt that you have because you're poor. You get out of jail because you have money through the bail system. You go to prison because you can't bail out because you're poor. These are economic issues. And it's an economic issue that's driven by this system that's creating laws that are specifically focused on generating revenue against the poor. You don't see these criminal elements within the higher class neighborhoods, right? You don't see a strip joint within the yuppie neighborhood of Atlanta, right? You don't see the liquor stores in the middle of the flats of Connecticut. No, those are within the poor community. They take those and they place them into the poor community because they know that when they provide that pressure, that it's likely that those people are going to act in a certain way that's going to be consistent with social parameters. And as a result, we'll pick them up. They won't be able to settle their debt. And as a result, we'll sell them into slavery so that they can pay it off at the expense of history. No, that's what we're doing. That's the slavery institution that we've established. That's what we call good here in America. But it's not good. It's slavery. Of the 1,500 people that our nation has put to death, 139 of them have been proven to have been innocent after they were murdered.
Wow.
139, that's 9%. And those are the ones that we know about from
And they're
exonerations.
probably saying that's okay because it's a percentage.
Well, yeah, they are there because that's the acceptable deviance because our system isn't perfect, right? I mean, 139 of the people that have been put to death, 139 of them have been proven to have been innocent after they're murdered. That's not good. That's
Mm-mm.
horrible. That's terrible. But
That's murder. Like you're going to hell for that.
it is murder. That is murder. That is absolutely murder. And especially when we know about it, because there's a good example of down in Texas of the DeSanto case, I believe it was, and in that particular case, they knew that he didn't do it. All law enforcement knew it wasn't him, but yet they allowed him to go to death row and ultimately put to death, even though he said he was innocent the whole time, even though there was evidence that showed otherwise. And we come to find out after he was murdered that it was a police informant that they didn't want to give up that did the killing. And they let someone go. And so in that particular case, because you just mentioned that, that they just claim that that's acceptable. Well, a good example is that after this DeSanto case was brought out, after all this evidence and everything was brought forward, and it was determined that he wasn't guilty, that it was the police that was protecting their informant, even though he was the murderer, and they allowed an innocent person to be killed, right? The governor of Texas, he comes out and he's going to apologize to the families. Apologize, guys. That's huge, right? Do you want to know what he said? He said that the jury made the correct decision with the information that they had available at the time.
That was his apology?
That's not an apology, guys. The jury
Why
made
didn't they have the
decision.
correct information?
They didn't have the correct information because the prosecutors and law enforcement decided that they weren't going to enforce the laws and weren't going to protect the rights of DeSanto, and they were going to have him murdered because they wanted to continue to proliferate their business and protect their business resources. And that's what we're dealing with. That's what we have to. That's what we have to deal with every day. The very people that we're going to and saying, "Oh my God, listen to my case. I've got a story. There's all this injustice that's occurred." You know what, guys? They don't give a shit about it.
Mm-mm.
They're causing it. You don't go to a criminal and ask a criminal to stop being a criminal. They won't do it. They're criminals. We got to do this differently. We have to do it completely differently. Stop going to the courts that are oppressing you, and let's go to the court that can make a decision and an impact. When we go into these state courts and we start fighting our cases and we say all these procedural elements that exist or all these reasons why we shouldn't be found guilty, they don't care. They want to get you to prison. That's all they care about. They want to get you into the institution so that they can make money off of you. But there's one court in the country, one court that it's making the decision that it makes flows out to every other court. And so today, if it's the state courts that is depriving you of rights that are secured by enumerated in the Constitution of the United States, if it's the state courts that's doing that, then the state court is able to deprive you of rights that the Supreme Court, the highest court land, cannot take away from you, which means that the lower courts are more powerful than the higher court. We must get the highest court, the Supreme Court of the United States, we must get them to understand that either they assert their supremacy, right, and they declare that they are what they claim that they are, or they don't exist. They have no power anymore because the state courts are more powerful than them. The state judges are more powerful than them. So if those state judges really do work for the justice system and they do really report to the Supreme Court of the United States and those 9 justices, then we need to go to those 9 justices and we need to say, you guys had better do your job, right? You guys had better tell states to comply with what you guys are bound to compliance with, or guys go home because you don't have a job anymore. There's no need for you anymore because you are nothing. You're nobody.
You don't do anything.
Yeah. If you guys are incapable of asserting your supremacy, the sole purpose of your existence, if you're incapable of doing that, then go home. Mm-hmm. Shut that building down because you guys don't have a job. You're not normal. You guys have no purpose. So assert your supremacy. Demand that the lower courts adhere to the procedures, process, the laws that are established, the whole philosophy of America, everything we believe in. Tell them to do it, or go home because you don't have a job and you're ineffective. So, if they want to be, what they claim to be, then they're going to have to do what they claim to do. And if these judges that are down state level, I mean, because I'll tell you, in the last couple months, I probably walked into 70 courts where the judge has sat on the bench and said, "We don't follow the Constitution here. Not my court. Not what we make laws here, right?
I'm in charge here, not the Constitution of the United States." Like, who do these people think they are? It's insane.
Don't follow
the Constitution. They have this much gumption.
Not in my court, right? Well, the problem is that every single state constitution, every single one of them, have all subjected themselves to the supremacy of the United States Constitution. So when a judge enters into his office, he swears an oath to both the United States Constitution and to the Constitution of the state.
Don't lawyers do that too?
They do. They do. And for a long time, I thought that this was a conflict that was resulting in this issue. But it's not true, because if they're swearing adherence or obligating themselves to obey the United States Constitution and the state constitution, at first you would think, oh, well, there's the problem. Because which one do they have to follow? They just swore to both of them. But if the state constitution, and every single one does, if the state constitution subjects itself to the supremacy of the United States Constitution, the state constitution doesn't matter. It's nothing. The only thing that matters is the United States Constitution. So like Article 1, Section 2 of the Washington Constitution, it says the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land and enjoys legal superiority over any collection provision with state constitutions and laws. That's subjecting itself to the supremacy of the United States Constitution. Therefore, the Washington Constitution means nothing. That judge swears an oath to the United States Constitution because his oath to the state constitution is irrelevant because the state constitution is subject to the United States Constitution. They're not bound and accountable to obey the state laws because the state laws are accountable to federal laws. And we have to understand that there is one thing that makes America America, and that is American laws. Absent faith in them, absent adherence to them, there is no longer America. So when states say that we're sovereign, we can create our own laws, we can do whatever we want. Yeah. Well, remember, so when you look at insurrection is not committed by the people. That's a lie. Insurrection is committed by the states. And James Madison, when he wrote the Federalist Number 10, the Federalist Number 10 was his title was "The Union as a Safeguard Against Domestic Faction and Insurrection." Right? The Union as a safeguard against domestic faction and insurrection. So he's talking about what insurrection was within the Federalist Number 10. And what that particular article talked about was it talked about the power of the Union is that if there's a state that's failing to obey the laws of the United States, those states that are around it would, as a union, would be able to make it come back into compliance, right? And so you would utilize the states to force individual states to return to the established rule of law and obey it. And so that was the judicial power of the Union because states are the ones that become insurrectionists. The states act in violation of the Constitution of the United States because you know what? We're sovereign. We can't break the Constitution when we make the Constitution. Just like sovereignty works. I mean, we are responsible for the laws. We create them. The people do, and as a result, we retain the power of the relationship. And so we can't commit insurrection. We can't go against our government because our government only exists through our supremacy to create that office, to create that government. And so when it's government that commits insurrection against the people when they refuse to recognize and enforce the body laws and the will of the people, that's what insurrection is, and that's what it's always been. I mean, our founders, forefathers, they were insurrectionists themselves. Do you think that they were creating laws that were going to make them criminals for the actions of that? No. They believed in our ability to be able to rise up against a government that's become oppressive and demand that they adhere to and comply by the will of the people. And that's what we've created. And so, we need to understand that what we do is we need to be on the right side of the law, first and foremost. We need to make sure that what we're doing is in obedience to the law. And once we do, then we can point at them and we can say, okay, you guys, this is what the law states. We're drawing a line in the sand. Here is the line. And we're going to say, this is what the law says. And did you do it? If you didn't, then you're on the unlawful side. You're over on that side. Okay. So once they recognize that, they see that their actions are unlawful, then they have to make a choice. Do you want to continue to do things unlawfully and thus you're going to be a criminal? Or two, do you want to obey the established, or not be a criminal, obey the established rule of law, come over to our side and stand with us on the lawful side and thus mitigate your culpability in overall conspiracy? That's the choices that they're each going to have to make. And it's going to start with each one of these legislators. Which side do you want to be on? Because if you remain on that side, even if you don't make a decision, you're still on that side. If you're on that side, God help you. All right. But as we continue to do it, we're going to see
because these crimes are punishable by death, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you
so they have some serious things to look at for their future.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very, very serious matter. Deprivation of rights under color of law that occurs in conjunction with a kidnapping, punishment is death.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get an indictment or when you use information to charge a person of an infamous crime, in violation of, or in depriving of the Clause 1 Amendment 5, the rights secured by the Constitution of the United States, that's the crime. The crime has occurred. You establish a conspiracy to the judge saying, yep, I'm going to sign it. And he signs it saying that everything was good. And then he gives it to the officer and tells them to go over and arrest them. All three of them are implicated in this one criminal act committed by the prosecutor that failed to adhere to the law and deprived the person of rights secured by the Constitution of the United States. They're all implicated in it. But when those officers go and arrest that individual, they don't have lawful authority to do that because they didn't have the proper documentation. And when they don't, you have kidnapping that has occurred every single time. Every single officer, every single judge, they're all implicated in the same exact crimes as the whole. That's how conspiracy works. And so through the conspiracy laws, we can create the pressure on legislators and then onto judges that will ultimately both pressure the executive branch to obey the law. They have to obey the law. And so, it is. This is a very serious offense. I mean, it's a very serious matter because anyone who swears an oath with the Constitution of the United States, such as myself, refusal to enforce or recognize those body laws that govern the nation is an act of treason.
It feels serious to me. I mean, they feel like serious criminals to me. Like, I don't even know what to do with them in my own mind, but put them on death row. Like, what are we going to do with these people that don't mind hurting people over and over and over again? And for what purpose? Just money? This is all about money? Give me a break.
All about money. It's all about money. That's all they care about. That's all that they see. But you're right. These are serious, and we're bringing to their attention. I don't want to see them all get in trouble, but I'm going to let them.
I just want them to change.
Right, but we have to give them the choice because it's up to them to decide. I have to make my decisions, and I have to live with those decisions. Everyone has to live with decisions that they make. We present these issues to them. We say, decide for yourself. Do you want to continue to do things that way, or do you want to obey the law and come back here, get an honorable position, and let's work together to resolve this issue? These are serious, but we need to give them time, and that's what I'm doing. I want to give these people time. I want them to give them the opportunity to be able to think about it, because when they do, they're going to come over to this side. I had dinner with the governor of a state and his father earlier this week, and it was an excellent meeting. We were there for almost 4 hours, and by the time we were done, we were all crying, because this is something that I don't think that they're aware of. Right? They're certainly not aware of how they're violating the law and to what extent. And this particular governor, his father actually served in the military. He was a retired pastor, and so as a father, certainly being in the military, when I started talking about my oaths and my duties and obligations, he quickly caught into that. Right, he caught on, and he actually asked me a question. He said, if I swear this oath and I got out on an honorable discharge, does that mean that I'm still bound to adhere to that? And I said, well, that's up to you. That's what's in your heart. But for me, absolutely. I mean, I swore that I would do something, and that is self-executing. It's perpetual. I have an obligation to do it because I can, at any point in time, be recalled back into active service. Therefore, my oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, is an oath that is self-sustaining, and I must obey it. Failure to do so makes me a criminal. So when I encounter someone that's warring against the Constitution domestically and refusing to enforce the body laws governing this nation, I have a statutory obligation to make them stop. If I don't, then I'm in trouble. And that applies to every
single. Like if you know about child abuse, you have to report it.
Absolutely. And so
if there's something wrong, you have to do something.
Every single one of these public officials, they have an obligation to ensure that the power that they exercise is consistent with the law, which means that the orders that they receive must be consistent with the law. Every single person, you see, we have the ability to use discretion with regard to our power, but when an obligation comes, we do not have the right to use discretion. It must be performed. So if my obligation is to protect the individual from unlawful arrest, then when I receive an order, I better make sure that order is valid. Because if I choose to exercise my power under the authority of an unlawful order, then my act is unlawful. I just breached my duty. Whether I do that willfully or negligently is irrelevant, because again, complicity and complacency are of equal contemplation when it comes to public officials. Mm-hmm. So every single one of these people They all are involved in this step. If the first step is the prosecuting attorney who doesn't understand the laws, who doesn't understand the Constitution, who does nothing more than they want to make this person a criminal because, by God, they think they're a criminal because their client said so, then they're committing an act that's egregious, right? Their action is without authority because it's being done through abuse of discretion. They're abusing the discretionary authority with which they're invested in law. But then when they give that to the judge, who also has the oath, and he has a responsibility to ensure that what he exercises is consistent with law. When he doesn't confirm that what he's doing, that the power that he chooses to exercise is consistent with the power of law, then he himself is exercising nothing at all. And again, and this is every single step of the way. The same thing with these legislators, as we bring this to legislators and we show them, because there is no denying that this is what's happened. No denying. I mean, there are 13 states that charge by information only for all crimes in violation of the United States Constitution. Those are simple, direct, facial constitutional violations that cannot be refuted. And so, understanding that, they swore an oath. Those legislators swore an oath. When we present them with this issue, they need to decide: do you want to do something about it, or do you not want to do something about it? Either way,
you want to be a part of it.
Yeah, you're going to be part of it. Absolutely. And I think they're going to choose to do the right thing. I don't know. I mean, I can't say, but again, I see a lot of things in our favor, and let me just talk about a couple of those things here. One is that a couple of weeks ago, Justice Gorsuch of the United States Supreme Court, he issued a judicial notice to every single federal judge in the United States of America and said that pretty much everybody that's in prison today are there unlawfully because the courts chose to proceed under civil matter or civil law as opposed to common law. Now that should ring as something that reminds you of what I'm doing, right? Because almost every single person in prison is there illegally and unlawfully because the states failed to follow the procedures and processes established by the Constitution of the United States in the adjudication of crimes. So Justice Gorsuch put out a notice to every single federal judge, basically saying, "You guys, we need to get ready for this." Right? I
mean, that's good. That's a good sign.
We don't know when it's going to come, but it's coming. Every single federal judge has received notification that this is coming. Okay, that's a great sign. That's a good sign, because now we have the court that's listening to us, that's recognizing it, they're seeing the deficiency, and they're ramping up to try to figure out how to resolve it. And
when did this happen?
2 Mondays ago.
Nice.
2 Mondays ago. And so that's an incredible situation.
That is
now I've been listening to a lot of the oral arguments here recently, and there are some oral arguments that are incredible as far as how they're aligning or paving the way for our case to be heard. A good example is there was a case that was dealing with the deprivation of property, the Fifth Amendment element, where deprivation of property without just compensation, right? And what's interesting is that in that particular oral arguments, the speaker, the advocate, he was presenting this issue of taking away property without compensation and the prohibitory element of it. But he went through and he actually identified and read each one of the provisions of the Fifth Amendment. And the last one he did was he read the indictment clause of the Fifth Amendment, or grand jury clause. And the moment that he got it out, it mentioned, he got it out, and then he mentioned that the absence of the absence of the indictment is the prohibitory act that would provide injunctive relief to anybody that's in prison without that particular prohibitory element. Well, he said that, and before he could even get the words out of his mouth, the justices were already asserting themselves in and saying, "Oh well, let's change the subject here," because they didn't want it to be said. They stopped him, and they quickly changed the subject, and that's excellent. But the doctrine or the Chevron doctrine, that's an element that I knew that I was going to have to overcome in order to do it, and yet it's already being argued, it's already being done, it's already being overcome. Everything is telling us that this is it. Everything's telling me that this is it. We have 700,000 truckers that are down in Eagle Pass today and tomorrow, which I was supposed to be there, but of course my car got stolen again for the 5th time this summer by police. I was supposed to be there, but we have 700,000 truckers that are coming down to Eagle Pass that's demanding that we that we get our restoration of our freedoms. Everything is coming together. We're seeing it. And it's getting really exciting. And I want to make sure that y'all got that hope, because, this isn't a matter of taking too long. This is a matter of doing it at the right time, and I trust the guidance that I have from the source that I get it from. I believe in him, and I'm going to fight for him. I'm going to continue to fight for him, but I'm fighting for all of you. Every day I wake up and I figure out what is it that I can do today to get these guys out of there. And it could happen any day. I don't know. But this isn't easy. And I want all you to understand that
it's all about patience anyway, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're not patient, it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Well, the patience is critical, guys, because we have to be very careful with this animal. I mean, this is a very, very dangerous animal that we're dealing with, especially when it gets cornered. And we don't want to have a destruction, because they have the guns and everything else. We don't want them to break them out and bring them after us, because we're just simply asking them to do the right thing. So we need to do it in the right way, and that's very slow, very methodical. We need to do it in a non-destructive manner. We need to do it with our words, not with anything else. Because in doing so, they will listen to us and they will hear this.
You're helping change my mind a little bit on the perspective of how I feel. Because I've been getting impatient, I think.
I'm mad. I want this to be done. I'm tired. I don't have places to live. I don't have a car anymore. I don't have food, but I got faith, guys, and that's what's fueling me. And I know that my faith is going to get me there. You guys don't have to believe in it. That's not going to impact my faith. That's not going to impact any of that. I know that this is going to be done. I know it. It's already been done. Hell, it was done before in 2019, before we even left there. They just haven't admitted it yet. Mm-hmm. But I guess that I just want to say that we got to start working together. We've got to work together more efficiently, more effectively, because as I go across this country, and I've done it 9 times this summer, right? 9 times since May. As I go across this country, I pick up a group of people, and we have these events, and I get a whole bunch of people that are on board, and they're excited, they're ready to go, they're listening, and they're believing, and they're faithful, they're happy, they're hopeful. But then something happens. Someone comes along and they're like, well, it's not going to work, or that's not going to happen, or they'll never let that go, or he doesn't have enough money. And guys, that's impacting your hope. And the next thing I know, you guys are no longer, interested in it. You guys are no longer participating. You guys have given up. They
become complacent, just like the system.
Yeah. I mean, guys, if you want to believe in something, then believe in it. You want to be faithful in something, be faithful in it. But if your faith is only strong as someone else's words come along, then you might need to find a new faith, guys. All that I'm asking us to do here, is believe this in the Constitution of the United States. Believe in what it says. Because if that document is what it says that it is and guarantees what it says that it guarantees, then that's all that we need to overcome all this.
There's no other choice.
There's no other choice. Because if you don't believe in it, then you don't believe in us. If you don't believe in us, then we're not going to exist anymore. Then we're going to be destroyed. And all these things that people are predicting will happen.
Yeah.
But if you believe in us, then you have to understand that us comes from that law and faith in it. Because that law, it says what they must do. It says what they have to do. And if they don't do it, it doesn't matter what judge made ruling said otherwise. It doesn't matter what statute created by Congress says otherwise. What matters is what it says. And when we have faith in it, we read it, we speak the truth of it, there's no lie that can overcome it. So the only thing that we have to believe in is believe in us. But what makes us is that law. There's one law, guys, 4 pages long. You want to believe in something.
It's our belief in our personal freedom, really.
Yeah. I mean, remember, the purpose of government was to protect the rights not given up in the social compact, right? So the way that the Constitution works, the way that natural law works is that we in the natural state of man, we have these rights, right? We have all kinds of rights. We can do anything we want, but we have these rights in the natural state of man, but those rights aren't good, right? Because in the natural state of man, you don't have the right to live. You actually have the right to kill. In the natural state of man, you don't have the right to your property. You have the right to steal whatever you want. Because in the natural state of man, only the strong survive. So if only the strong survive the natural state of man, and we want to live in a peaceful, cohesive community like here in America, like we were on, then we have to give up certain natural rights that are negative in order to obtain the protection of certain rights that we want. If we want to all live, then we've got to protect the life of the vulnerable and the weak, right? And thus we are going to give up our right to kill them in order to preserve their right to live. And thus I get my right to live. So we gain our civil rights as a result of choosing to defend and protect the rights of others. So as we give up these rights, give up the right to kill, give up the right to steal, give up the right to rape, all these rights that we would have in a natural state of man, we give them up. We then receive the rights that they're guaranteed to everyone, right? So as I give up my right to kill, I will then have the right to not be killed. So if someone breaches their right to kill and kill me, then that would result in violation of my right. I had the right to live. And the purpose of government was to protect those rights not given up in the social combat. So government arose for no reason other than to protect the life, the liberty, and the environment for the people to find happiness. That's it. That's their sole purpose was to do that. The judges themselves, they were there and put into place as the guarantors of liberty, because the judge is in place for no reason other than to protect the minority, to protect the defendant from the majority. His whole purpose was to protect the defendant, protect him, and protect his rights from the majority. That's why he's the guarantor of liberty. Do you think that's what they're doing?
No, they're working in
No.
they're cahoots. They go back in the office and they discuss what they're going to do to you together. The prosecuting attorney, your court appointed attorney, and the judge. They go back in their chambers. They discuss what they're going to do to screw you over. Basically,
but
it's not separate. They're together. All of them.
But the purpose of the judiciary, the purpose of the judges, was to protect the minority from the majority. That was their purpose, to guarantee that this person's rights were protected against those that were trying to deprive them of those rights. That was
That's
the purpose of the
surprising
judges.
to me because they do nothing of the sort.
They do nothing of the sort. They've lost their way.
Yeah.
Going the wrong way. That's not what they were created to do. They were created to protect that individual. They're not doing it. They are not guarantors of liberty. They're agents of hell. Now, the purpose of the prosecutor was to administer or to negotiate the contracts between the defendant and the agency that was persecuting them. His purpose was to negotiate the best contract for or the best position for that defendant. The prosecutor was supposed to be protecting the defendant. That was the purpose of the prosecutor, was to act as their administrator, which they do in a courtroom, right? I mean, the prosecutor is saying, okay, we'll enter into this contract and go to prison for this long. But that's not, they weren't supposed to do it in opposition. They were supposed to do it in cooperation, because the prosecutor's purpose was to protect them and protect their rights.
Well, that's
So
insane.
everything that we have in this system, everything we built, everything we've come to understand about justice here in America is not just, man. We built this whole thing upside down. And so when you look at the hierarchy of laws, and we'll probably go out with this, but when you look at the hierarchy of laws have a hierarchy, okay? And it starts with the Constitution of the United States. That is the foundation, right? That is what every other law must derive from, okay? In order for them to be consistent with the law, it must derive from the Constitution. Okay, so the foundation is the Constitution. Next is treaties, then statutes, then ordinances, customs, and so on. That is what's known as affirmative law. So it's law that's in a written form, created by a body man that's legally constituted to be able to do so. The foundation is the Constitution, and it goes up. Now, there's another body of law known as common law, and it's directly above that. It's known as negative law. Negative law because it's not created by a body man that are legally constituted with the authority to be able to do so, and because it's in a non-written legislative type form. Now, at the very, very bottom of common law is case law or judge-made rulings. Because remember, if the Constitution advances based upon suffrage, and suffrage is the majority voting to advance the relationship in a certain manner or means, then the Constitution and constitutionalism then requires majority opinion. So the opposite of majority opinion then would be one single judge imposing his will upon the rest of the nation. That's why case law is the exact opposite of the Constitution. Okay, so when the Constitution is supposed to be the foundation and everything derives from it, right? Well, what happens when I go into a courtroom and I say, well, my rights were violated? That judge or or whoever would then go and they would obtain case law or judge-made rulings and bring it in. They would say, well, you don't get it because of this judge-made ruling. They don't go to the Constitution to determine whether or not your constitutional rights have been violated. Instead, they go to the lowest form of law to determine whether or not it has the authority to be able to change the highest form of law, Constitution. And so as a result, we're under what's known as legal realism, which is the belief that law is not based upon a formal set of laws or principles, but instead upon judicial decisions deriving from their own social, political, public policy.
Well, it
So
depends on the mood of the judge that day too, right?
absolutely, because there's millions and millions of cases that exist that they can pick anything they want. They have a predetermined outcome that's already in place, and they will seek to advance that predetermined outcome without any understanding of justice because they've chosen to take a side, right? So when they go to the lowest form of law in order to determine whether or not your rights have been violated instead of the highest form of law, well, they just breach their oath because their oath is within to the Constitution directly. They don't go to the flawed decision of the man that came before them or the flawed decision of the man that came before him. They go to the object which their fidelity is bound. The Constitution of the United States failure to do so is the crime of perjury, because that's what happens as a result of the breach of the promise that they make upon entering into their office. So we have this hierarchy of a way it was supposed to be built. Constitution is supposed to be at the bottom, at the foundation, and everything coming from it. But instead, since they're going to judge-made rulings, the lowest form of law or the opposite of Constitution, they go to that to determine whether or not your rights have been violation, which means that that's the foundation. Then the whole thing is upside down. The foundation right now is case law, because judges go to it to determine whether or not your rights have been violated, which means that judges are able to alter, amend, or destroy the Constitution of the United States based upon judicial fiat every single day. They change the Constitution based upon their own will, their own social, political, or public policy. And it was never supposed to be that way, ever, because the Constitution can only be altered, amended, or destroyed by an authentic act of people in accordance with the special amending procedure of Article 5. Any other way is an accusation done by a traitor to this nation.
I mean, it's a monopoly, is what it is.
Yeah. So I'm going to need to get off, but
Thank you so much for coming on with me, Tano. I've been wanting to do this forever. Hopefully we can do it regularly, get updates and stuff,
Yeah, I'd like to. And another thing is there's a lot of information that I need to just get out, because there's a lot of things that people need to know, right? Because if something happens to me, then we don't want this to go away, and I don't want to not have that information out there for everybody. So I'm going to start. I'm trying to get somewhat stable into a place where I can do this, but I need to get some videos out. I need to get those videos circulating so that if something were to happen to me, at least people understand the true nature of the system, the knowledge that I have, and we can continue this fight, because we will prevail. But sadly, people that do what I do, we don't ride off in the sunset at the end of the day, and we accept that, and I know that. And with these states that are now seeking to arrest me if I come into states, we know that the dynamics are changing somewhat dramatically at this point, and so again, I don't have means of getting around. So hopefully in the next few days, I'll be able to start producing some of these videos, getting them out on small little bits and pieces of each one of these elements, because we got to understand what an irrefutable presumption of guilt is and what results from an irrefutable presumption of guilt, because the burden of proof shifts from prosecution on defense to prove their case. You have to go out and collect evidence in order to prove your innocence. That is guilt until proven innocent. That's not innocent. The exact opposite, but that's what's happening. We have across the board irrefutable presumption of guilt. I know the history of it. It goes back to 1628, the stamp tax. We could see what happened in 1628 with the king and what he did in order to bring us to the place that we were at, that actually required us to go into and declare our independence. And you can see within that very Declaration of Independence, you can see two statements that directly attest to the irrefutable presumption of guilt that we are currently experiencing today here in America, once again, because we're not learning from our mistakes. These are things that we need to know. All right. I have this knowledge. I got to share it with you guys. And so, I would welcome it again. And thank you so much for your.
Yeah, just let me know when you're ready. I'm pretty much always ready. I'm on standby doing lives constantly, so I'm always ready. But make sure you let everybody know how they can help you get a car so you can keep the ball rolling.
Yeah. Well, so we have Cash App, we have Venmo, we have Chime, we have PayPal. don't take anything out of your family, out of your family's mouths. You know, I think that the people in the United States have spent more than enough money on this system. I don't want them to spend any more than they need to, um, but I can't continue to do this given my situation because there's no food, there's no gas, and there's no vehicle, and but it's not going to take much to get us there. I mean, every single day, again, I wake up and I try to figure out some way to make this happen. And I don't do anything else. The money that I get doesn't go to pay rent because I don't have rent. I live in a car right now because that's the best thing for me to do because this is for you guys. It's not for
But
me.
you need a car to live
I
in.
gotta have a car. Yeah. I mean, because otherwise I'm out on park bench and although that wouldn't be the first time that's happened a few times over this summer as well, but it's getting really it's getting really hard on me. I mean, I'm getting tired.
It exposes you not only to the elements, but to people trying to take you out. Let's
Yeah,
be honest.
yeah. I mean, there are some dangerous situations where in Florida is a great example. I mean, there were 12 sheriffs that came to get me. I mean, that's not that's not a low profile person, and yet what have I done? I mean, I'm telling
Right.
them that they're breaking the law. This is what the law says, and you can be put to death as prescribed by law. That's not a threat. That's not rhetoric. That's the law. I'm simply telling them the law. And yet, if they're able to pull in a call in a political favor to quell that statement, then I mean, yeah, it's
I
dangerous.
think their political favors are all revolving around blackmail. They all have dirt on each other. They're all scared of each other. I can't wait till they start turning on each other.
Yeah, and there's not this isn't like the mob, where there's a brotherhood and they're going to keep silent. Oh no, these guys they're going to squeal on each other.
Oh
Any
yeah,
second. I mean, there's
I
not going
know.
to be. These guys don't care about each other. They're criminals as it is. They're liars. They're not going to have any problem whatsoever. That
Mm-mm.
when you put a little pressure onto them, they're going to be like, oh wait a second, I'll give you all these people, right?
Well, there's
Because
no
the hardest part.
loyalty amongst thieves. Let's face it. They don't have a good backing at all.
See, the thing is that when you deal with a criminal conspiracy, the hardest part is to get that first one to fall. But once you break into that conspiracy, it falls quick, and
Yeah.
and this one will fall quicker than you can imagine because these guys they don't
Dominoes.
they're out to get is whatever they can out of them. They're not gonna be standing up and protecting each other because there's
Mm-mm.
no brotherhood here. It's just a bunch of people that are advancing their interest for money. That's all it is. So all their decisions are how can we make the most money? Well, I don't know because I want to focus on the service side, and I think that I've been a little bit more effective by doing that. But so again, Cash App, Venmo, Chime, PayPal, every single cent that you guys send is going to one purpose and one purpose only, and that is
We
to
shall be free.
yeah, we shall be free. We shall be free. WESHALLBEFREE. And again, you guys, I mean, um, I thank you guys for letting me serve you because this is an honor for me to do it. And in the end, regardless of whether it's me that does it or it's going to be done. And
I
we're
think
going
you're
to
gonna make it through. I think you're gonna make it. I think we're all gonna make it. It's just
oh,
really flipping rough right now.
it's really hard right now. I mean, I when that happened on Wednesday, I couldn't even leave. I couldn't even get up on Thursday. Like it, that was the first time in a long time that I've been completely immobile. And that was the day that I just thought, do I want to keep doing this? I mean, I mean, that was the closest I've ever come to giving up.
I've been
And
there the past few days, honestly.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
like, what next? I don't even know.
yeah,
I just keep getting attacked from every direction.
yeah. But I know that we can do this
We
because
can.
I know that we're right. This is the right thing. We are obeying the laws, and so one thing that they're doing.
God's law. Let's face it, we're obeying God's law. This is universal law. This isn't just the Constitution of the United States. This is
Yeah,
universal law, God's law. You do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Period. And
yeah,
that just covers it everything across the board, if you ask me.
yeah, yeah. It does. I mean, we're not asking for anything special.
Mm-mm.
We're just simply asking for equity. Equal treatment. Because remember, we all know that the laws are to apply to everyone equally, equal protection of laws. And if we're all to have equal protection of laws, then that means that we must have fair and equal governing. Because if government is the one that's responsible for administering and enforcing the laws, then an attribute of fair and equal application of laws must be fair and equal governing. So government cannot take a side against you, because if they do, then there's an unequal application of the laws. It's affecting one party differently than another. Government cannot take a side in any cause. That's the whole root of this issue. That's everything that we're dealing with. They cannot take a side.
That's common sense. They should be impartial.
Right. They must govern neutrally, which means that they can't take a side and rule.
Yeah.
Because when they rule, then they are applying the law unequally. They are affecting one party differently than another. They must be fair and neutral. They must pull themselves into a position where they're not going to take a side, and they're going to allow both parties to proceed, because the truth is more important than their industry.
Well, because that's a democracy. It's not a monarchy. You know what I mean? This is not a monarchy. This is not one person in charge. It's a democracy. It has to be run like a democracy. Let's face it.
Yeah, but remember, I mean, the judicial branch makes rulings. What else ruled? Kings ruled, right? Kings said we're sovereign, immune. You can't challenge us because we're honorable, and we got to. I mean, that's what they are. They believe that they are in a position of
the king.
And as a result, you can't touch them. You got to rise when they come in. You got to call them honorable. They can break the law. They can do anything they want with absolute impunity, because they're kings and they can rule. They're not kings.
No.
They're a man just like us, and they're in that position because of our sovereignty to put them there. But when they breach the obligation that's created by the people, they're nothing. They're nothing but a traitor. They're criminal. They're traitor, because they're not obeying the will of people. So thank you guys so much. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Get back to me as soon as you can. I love you, Tanoa. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right, we'll see ya.
Bye.
That was amazing. That is my friend Tanoa Downing. He is amazing, and I hope you all support him so he can get another car and continue to fight for our freedom. It's much needed. I forget how to even turn these lives off. It's been so long since I've been. Okay. So, yeah. I guess I'm just gonna have to hit the X out. So, you still here, Bob? I love you, Bob. I miss you. I'll be back. I'm gonna come on YouTube more often so I can talk to my friends. I'm blocked on Facebook from all my friends. All right. I love you guys. I will be back very soon. I'll keep this short so it's just about Tanoa. I love you. Help Tanoa, okay? It's We Shall Be Free. Cash App, Chime, Venmo, and PayPal. Please help Tanoa. Help us. This is about all of us. If one of our freedoms is jeopardized, it's all of us. So let's stick together, and maybe it won't turn into a civil war or a World War III. Maybe we can turn this around and make it good again. Okay, make America great again, please. With Tanoa Downey. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Bye bye.